Felicia must have copied my drafts. Hannah's accusation slices through the room, pinning Felicia Brooks, a brilliant black artist, under the weight of doubt. Her painting, a masterpiece of resilience, is now questioned, her dream of Paris hanging by a thread. What happens when talent is overshadowed by prejudice? Where are you listening from today? Drop a comment with your city and your guess. Will Felicia rise above this betrayal, or will her self-doubt win? This is a story of a shy artist, her radiant art, and a chance encounter that could change everything. Will a single painting, given away in despair, unlock her future? Subscribe now to catch every twist in this journey and share where you're tuning in. Your quiet strength might be what the world needs. Stick around to see how Felicia shines. Like, comment, and let's uncover her truth together. The air in Felicia Brooks' dorm room hung heavy with the scent of linseed oil and turpentine, a quiet testament to the hours she'd spent coaxing life from her canvas. At 22, she was a vision, her long black hair spilling over her shoulders like a midnight river, framing a face where deep brown eyes held stories she'd never dare speak. Her skin, a rich mahogany that caught the lamplight's glow, was a canvas she couldn't love, not yet. Growing up in the small town of Macon, Georgia, Felicia had learned to shrink herself. Too dark, the kids at school had whispered, their words sharp as thorns, pricking her confidence until it bled away. In art class, her sketches, bold, vibrant scenes of black women laughing, children chasing fireflies, outshone her peers. Yet the taunts lingered, each one a brushstroke painting her as unworthy. Now in her final year at Clark Atlanta University, Felicia sat cross-legged on her narrow bed, staring at a half-finished painting propped against the wall. It was a woman standing in a field of sunflowers, her silhouette radiant against a twilight sky streaked with gold and indigo. The piece, Unyielding Light, was her heart spilled onto canvas, a hymn to resilience, to the quiet strength of those who endured. But Felicia's fingers trembled as she gripped her paintbrush, doubt curling in her chest like smoke. "Who's gonna buy black art?" A classmate's voice echoed from her freshman year, a cruel refrain that had rooted itself deep. She'd heard it too often. Her work was niche, too specific, not the kind of art that hung in galleries or won awards. Her talent, she feared, was a light the world would never see. The dorm's fluorescent light flickered, casting shadows that danced across her sketchbooks, each page filled with dreams she kept hidden. Felicia had always painted in secret, her art a private rebellion against a world that seemed to favor lighter faces, louder voices. She'd sketch in the margins of her notebooks during lectures, capturing the curve of a stranger's smile or the weight of an old man's sigh. Her professors noticed, Dr. Ellis with his kind eyes and dog-eared sketch pads especially. "Your work has soul, Felicia," he'd said last semester, his voice warm but firm. "It's time to let it breathe." His words had sparked something, a flicker of hope, but it was quickly smothered by the weight of her past. Tonight, that flicker fought to survive. Dr. Ellis had spent weeks urging her to enter the Horizon Art Scholarship, a prestigious competition offering a year-long study program in Paris. "Your paintings tell stories the world needs," he'd insisted, leaning across his cluttered desk, his glasses slipping down his nose. Paris. The word alone conjured images of cobblestone streets, galleries aglow with masterpieces, a city where art was revered. But Felicia couldn't shake the fear that she didn't belong there. Her GPA was strong, her portfolio a quiet marvel. Yet the idea of competing felt like stepping into a spotlight she wasn't meant to claim. She'd spent her life fading into the background, a habit born in Macon schoolyards, where staying quiet meant staying safe. She rose from her bed, her bare feet cold against the linoleum floor, and approached Unyielding Light. The woman in the painting seemed to gaze back, her eyes fierce yet tender, as if daring Felicia to believe in herself. She'd poured weeks into this piece, blending colors until the sunflowers seemed to sway, their petals catching the last light of day. The woman's stance, shoulders squared, head high, mirrored the resilience Felicia longed for but couldn't grasp. She'd chosen every detail with care, from the deep ochre of the field to the soft violet of the sky, crafting a story of hope rising from struggle. It was her best work. But was it enough? Her journal lay open on her desk, its pages a map of her fears. She picked up a pen, her hands steady despite the storm in her chest, and wrote, "I'm not the type who wins. Not scholarships, not dreams. Maybe my art is just a whisper in a world that only hears screams." The words stung, but they felt true. She thought of her childhood in Macon, of the foster home she'd landed in after her mother's passing when she was 9. There, silence had been her shield, keeping her safe from questions she couldn't answer. Art had been her voice, a way to speak without speaking, but even that felt fragile now. Dr. Ellis's voice echoed again. "The world needs your art, Felicia." She wanted to believe him, but the scholarship loomed like a mountain. The deadline was tomorrow, and she'd nearly abandoned the idea of submitting. What if the judges saw her work and laughed? What if they saw her, a black girl from a small town, her hair too wild, her skin too dark, and dismissed her? She imagined their critiques. Talented, but not universal enough. The thought twisted her stomach, and she set the brush down, its bristles still wet with paint. Yet something stirred, a stubborn spark she couldn't extinguish. She thought of her mother who'd once hung Felicia's childhood drawings on their fridge, calling them magic. She thought of the women in her paintings, their strength a quiet fire. Maybe, just maybe, she could try. Felicia took a breath, her fingers tracing the edge of unyielding light. She'd submit it, not because she believed she'd win, but because not trying felt like betraying the woman in the painting, betraying herself. She sealed the submission form, her heart pounding as she uploaded a photo of the canvas. The click of the submit button felt like a leap into the unknown. She sank onto her bed, staring at the ceiling, where shadows from the streetlights outside wove patterns of doubt and hope. Tomorrow the world will see her art. Would it see her, or would it, like always, look past her? Felicia closed her eyes, the weight of her fears pressing down. But the woman in the sunflower field stood tall in her mind, unyielding, whispering, "Keep going." The lecture hall at Clark Atlanta University buzzed with anticipation, its high ceilings amplifying the murmurs of students and faculty gathered for the Horizon Art Scholarship final judging. Felicia Brooks sat in the third row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her long black hair falling like a curtain around her face. Her painting, Unyielding Light, hung on a display easel at the front, its sunflower field glowing under the stage lights. The black woman at its center, radiating quiet defiance. Felicia's heart thudded, each beat a reminder of her gamble. She'd bared her soul on that canvas, and now it faced scrutiny. The scholarship, full funding for a year in Paris, felt like a dream too grand for her, but she'd submitted anyway, pushed by a spark she couldn't name. Beside her painting stood another, Golden Horizon, by Hannah Whitmore, a senior whose confidence filled rooms like sunlight. Hannah stood near the stage, her blonde hair catching the light, her smile practiced and sharp. Her painting mirrored Felicia's in uncanny ways. A woman in a sunflower field, dusk painting the sky in hues of gold and violet. The similarity prickled Felicia's skin, but she dismissed it as a coincidence. Ideas overlapped, didn't they? She shifted in her seat, her worn sneakers scuffing the floor, trying to silence the doubt that whispered she didn't belong here. Professor Clara Nguyen, the lead judge, stepped to the podium, her presence commanding silence. "We've shortlisted 2 exceptional works," she said, her voice clear and measured. "But we've noticed a striking similarity in concept. We need to understand whose vision came first." The words landed like a stone in Felicia's stomach. She glanced at Hannah, who met her eyes with a cool, unwavering gaze. The air thickened, the room's attention sharpening like a blade. Hannah stepped forward, her posture effortless, her voice carrying the polish of someone who'd never doubted her place. "Golden Horizon is my original concept," she declared. "I've been sketching sunflower fields since last summer, inspired by a trip to Savannah. Felicia must have seen my drafts in the studio and copied me." The accusation sliced through the room, sharp and deliberate, pinning Felicia under its weight. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and every eye turned to her. Felicia's breath caught, her throat tightening as memories of childhood taunts flooded back, whispers of "too dark," sneers that her art was less than. She felt them again, those invisible hands pushing her down. I, I didn't copy, Felicia stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. She stood, her legs trembling, her hands clutching the edge of her seat. Unyielding light is mine. I've been working on it for weeks, sketching in my journal. Her words faltered, thin and unconvincing against Hannah's polished certainty. The judges' faces were unreadable, their pens poised over clipboards. Felicia's mind raced. She had sketches, notes, proof in her dorm, but the weight of the room's gaze crushed her. She'd spent years shrinking, staying quiet to avoid conflict, and now that instinct betrayed her. It's my idea, she tried again, but her voice cracked, and tears stung her eyes. Hannah tilted her head, a flicker of pity in her smile. I'm sure it was an honest mistake, she said, her tone dripping with false kindness. But my sketches are dated. I can show them. The lie was seamless, and Felicia felt the ground shift beneath her. She wanted to scream, to demand justice, but the old wounds held her back. Years of being dismissed, of being told her voice didn't matter. The judges murmured among themselves, and Professor Nguyen's eyes softened with something like regret. We'll need to review further evidence, she said, but the damage was done. Felicia felt the room closing in, the spotlight burning her skin. She couldn't stay. Grabbing unyielding light from the easel, she stumbled toward the exit, the canvas heavy in her arms. Tears blurred her vision as she pushed through the double doors, the cool March air hitting her face like a slap. She sank onto a bench outside, the painting propped against her knees, its colors mocking her. I don't belong here, she whispered, her voice breaking. The scholarship, Paris, the dream of being seen, it all felt like a door slammed shut. She'd poured her heart into that canvas, and now it was tainted, her truth stolen by a lie she couldn't fight. By dawn, Felicia's despair had hardened into resolve. Unyielding light deserved better than her, better than a world that wouldn't see it, or her for what it was. She walked to a bustling street market near campus, where vendors sold everything from jewelry to homemade pies. Mr. Amos, an elderly black man with kind eyes and a weathered cap, sat at his art stall, his hands folded over a stack of local paintings. Felicia had seen him before, his gentle smile a quiet comfort during her market visits. She approached, her steps heavy, and held out the canvas. Sell it, she said, her voice flat. It's better off with someone else. Mr. Amos studied the painting, his eyes tracing the sunflowers, the woman's proud stance, the twilight's glow. This is something special, child, he said, his voice low and warm. You sure about this? Felicia nodded, her throat too tight to speak. She couldn't bear to keep the painting, a reminder of her failure, her silence in the face of Hannah's lie. Just sell it, she repeated, turning away before tears could betray her again. As she walked back to her dorm, the market's noise fading, she felt a piece of herself slip away with the canvas. Unyielding light was gone, and with it, her fragile hope. The world, she thought, had no place for her art, or her heart. The Atlanta street market thrummed with life, its air thick with the scent of roasted peanuts and blooming jasmine from a nearby stall. It was a Saturday morning, 2 days after Felicia Brooks had surrendered her painting, Unyielding Light, to Mr. Amos, the elderly vendor whose art stall was a patchwork of local dreams. Felicia, still raw from the scholarship competition's sting, had retreated to her dorm, her sketchbook untouched, her heart a tangle of shame and resignation. She'd given up her canvas, convinced it, and she belonged nowhere. But the market, unaware of her surrender, was about to rewrite her story. Benjamin Carter, a painter whose name adorned gallery walls from New York to London, navigated the market's crowded aisles, his silver hair catching the midday sun. At 68, he moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd spent decades chasing light and shadow. His eyes, sharp and searching, scanned the stalls. Not for trinkets, but for something real, something that spoke. He'd come to Atlanta for a guest lecture, but markets like this were his true muse, where raw talent often hid in plain sight. At Mr. Amos's stall, a flash of color stopped him cold. There, leaning against a rickety table, was Unyielding Light, a black woman standing tall in a sunflower field, her silhouette ablaze against the twilight sky. The painting pulsed with life, its colors bold yet tender, its story one of unyielding resilience. Benjamin stepped closer, his breath catching. The brushwork was precise, the interplay of light and shadow masterful, but it was the emotion, the quiet defiance in the woman's stance, that gripped him. "Who painted this?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Mr. Amos, his hands folded over a worn ledger, looked up, his eyes gleaming with the weight of the moment. "A young woman, Felicia Brooke," he said, "a student at Clark Atlanta. She gave it to me to sell, but she doesn't believe in herself. Broke my heart to see her walk away." Benjamin's gaze returned to the canvas, tracing the sunflower's sway, the woman's proud curve of shoulder. "This is no ordinary talent," he said. "I need to meet her." Mr. Amos nodded, promising to pass along the message. He'd seen Felicia before, her quiet visits to the market, her eyes always lingering on the art stalls with a hunger she tried to hide. That afternoon he called her dorm, his voice crackling through the phone. "Some big-shot artist wants to meet you, child," he said. "Says your painting's a masterpiece. Meet him at the coffee shop on Peachtree, 4 o'clock. Felicia, curled on her bed with a pencil dangling between her fingers, froze. Her heart raced, but doubt hissed in her ear. He's probably mistaken, she thought, picturing her canvas in the market, exposed and unworthy. Yet something, curiosity, or perhaps the ghost of her hope, pulled her upright. She slipped on a faded denim jacket, her hair spilling loose, and headed out, her steps heavy with trepidation. The coffee shop was a warm haven, its walls lined with local art, the air rich with espresso and cinnamon. Felicia spotted unyielding light on a table in the corner, its colors vibrant even under the dim light. Beside it sat Benjamin Carter, his presence commanding yet gentle, his silver hair tucked behind his ears. He rose as she approached, his smile as inviting as a hearth. "Felicia Brooks?" he asked, gesturing to the chair across from him. She nodded, her throat tight, bracing for critique. "This is yours, isn't it?" He slid the canvas toward her, his eyes searching hers. Felicia swallowed, her fingers grazing the frame. "Yes," she whispered, expecting judgment. Instead, Benjamin leaned forward, his voice soft but steady. "This painting has a voice, a powerful one. The way you weave light and shadow, the story in every stroke, it's extraordinary. Why would you give it away?" Felicia's eyes dropped, her hands twisting in her lap. The question cut deep, unearthing the pain she'd buried. "I didn't think it was good enough," she said, her voice barely audible. "I didn't think I was good enough." The words spilled out, raw and unfiltered, her childhood taunts about her dark skin, the scholarship rejection, the accusation that she'd stolen an idea that was hers. "People like me, we don't get chances like that. I thought letting it go was better than holding on to a dream that wasn't mine." Benjamin listened, his face a map of compassion and resolve. He saw not just the artist, but the woman who'd been taught to hide. "Felicia," he said, his voice firm yet kind, "your talent isn't just good enough. It's rare. This painting tells a story the world needs to hear. Not because of your skin, but because of your soul." He reached into his satchel and pulled out a sketchbook, its cover worn from years of use. "I've been searching for someone to receive my foundation's Emerging Artist Grant. $50,000 for a year in Paris, with mentorship. I want you to have it, not out of pity, but because your work demands to be seen." Felicia's breath caught, her eyes wide with disbelief. Paris, mentorship, a chance to be more than a shadow. "Why me?" she asked, her voice trembling. Benjamin slid the sketchbook across the table. "Write down your fears, then paint over them," he said. "Your art is your truth, Felicia. It's time you claimed it." Tears welled in her eyes as she took the sketchbook, its weight a promise she wasn't sure she could carry. For the first time she felt seen, not as a black artist, but as an artist, her heart laid bare in strokes of paint. As she left the coffee shop, unyielding light under her arm, a spark flickered in her chest, a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, her light could shine. The truth, like a buried seed, has a way of breaking through when the time is right. At Clark Atlanta University, the air buzzed with whispers days after Felicia Brooks met with Benjamin Carter. Her painting, Unyielding Light, now safely back in her dorm, seemed to pulse with new life, its sunflower field a quiet testament to her resilience. But the sting of Hannah Whitmore's accusation still lingered, a bruise on Felicia's heart. She sat on her bed, the sketchbook Benjamin had given her open to a blank page, her fingers tracing the edges as she wrestled with his words. Your art is your truth. Could she claim it? The emerging artist grant, $50,000 for a year in Paris, felt like a dream she didn't deserve, yet its promise burned bright, daring her to step forward. On a crisp Monday morning, a knock on her dorm door jolted Felicia from her thoughts. It was Maya, a quiet junior from her art class, her eyes wide with urgency. Felicia, you need to know something, she said, her voice low. I overheard Hannah in the studio, bragging to her friends. She said she studied your sketches when you left them out to dry. She copied Unyielding Light. The words hit like a spark in dry grass, igniting a mix of anger and relief in Felicia's chest. She'd known her painting was her own, but Hannah's lie had been so polished, so convincing, it had silenced her. Now someone else had seen the truth. Maya had already taken her story to Professor Clara Nguyen, the Horizon Scholarship's lead judge. By noon, Felicia was summoned to the art department's office, a small room cluttered with paint tubes and framed prints. Professor Nguyen sat behind her desk, her expression grave but kind. We've reviewed your journal and preliminary sketches, she said, sliding Felicia's worn notebook across the table. Its pages, filled with studies of sunflowers and notes on twilight hues, were dated weeks before Hannah's supposed summer sketches. The evidence is clear. Your work is original. Hannah was not. Felicia's breath caught, her hands trembling as she clutched the notebook. The truth was out, but it felt fragile, like a canvas exposed to rain. Nguyen continued, her voice softening. We're disqualifying Golden Horizon. The Horizon Scholarship is yours if you want it. Felicia's heart raced, but something had shifted. Benjamin's grant, offered not out of obligation but belief, felt truer, freer. Thank you, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. But I've accepted another opportunity. She left the office, her head high, the weight of Hannah's lie lifting like morning mist. The scholarship had been a dream, but Benjamin's offer was a door she'd chosen to open herself. Weeks later, Felicia stepped off a plane in Paris, the city's autumn air sharp with possibility. Her heart pounded as she clutched her suitcase, her sketchbook tucked inside like a talisman. The emerging artist grant covered her tuition, rent, and supplies, but it was Benjamin's promise of mentorship that anchored her. He met her at a small studio near the Seine, its windows framing a city aglow with history. This is your space, he said, gesturing to a sunlit room with easels and blank canvases. Paint what you feel, not what you think others want. His silver hair gleamed under the skylight, his eyes warm with expectation. Felicia's first weeks were a whirlwind of color and discovery. She wandered Paris's galleries, sketching in the shadow of Monet's water lilies and Basquiat's raw, vibrant lines. Her paintings grew bolder, weaving African-American heritage into universal stories. Market women from Macon reimagined on Parisian streets, children chasing dreams under foreign skies. Her brush moved with a new freedom, her strokes unapologetic. Yet doubt lingered, a whisper that her work, her skin, her story might still be too much for this world. She wrote her fears in Benjamin's sketchbook. What if I'm not enough here either? Benjamin sensed her hesitation during their weekly meetings at a cafe overlooking Notre Dame. Over steaming espresso, he'd share stories of his struggles. A black painter navigating a white-dominated art world, his early works dismissed as too ethnic. Your skin, your story, they're your strength, he told her one evening, his voice steady as stone. Paint from that truth, and no one can dim your light. He challenged her to create a series, Light in Absence, inspired by those who'd shaped her, her mother, Mr. Amos, even the pain of Hannah's betrayal. Felicia listened, her heart stirring, and began to paint not to prove herself, but to claim herself. Her confidence grew, brush stroke by brush stroke. She stopped tucking her hair behind her ears to seem neater, letting it flow wild and free. She wore bold colors, her dark skin glowing against crimson scarves and emerald dresses, no longer hiding from the mirror. Parisian artists noticed her work, inviting her to local exhibitions where her paintings sparked murmurs of awe. A gallery owner, Madame Dubois, lingered over a piece, a black girl dancing in a rainstorm, her joy defying the gray, and asked for more. Felicia's heart swelled, but grief struck when she learned of Benjamin's passing, a sudden illness stealing him just months into her time in Paris. She sat in her studio that night, light in absence half finished, tears falling onto the canvas. Benjamin had seen her when she couldn't see herself, his belief a spark that had ignited her courage. She painted through the pain, her brush tracing his memory, a figure gazing at a canvas, his silhouette framed by light. The series became her tribute, each piece a testament to those who shine even in absence. As Felicia stood back, her studio filled with vibrant works, she realized she was no longer the girl who'd given away her painting. She was an artist, her truth no longer a whisper, but a shout, ready to echo across the world. The New York gallery pulsed with life, its white walls bathed in the soft glow of spotlights that danced across Felicia Brooks' paintings. It was the spring of 2027, and at 26, Felicia stood at the heart of her first solo exhibition, Unyielding Light, her long black hair cascading over a crimson dress that hugged her frame like a declaration. Her deep brown skin, once a source of shame, now glowed with a confidence that silenced the ghosts of her past. The room buzzed with collectors, critics, and everyday people drawn to her work, canvases that wove African-American resilience with universal hope. Each painting told a story: a girl dancing in a rainstorm, a market woman defying time, a twilight field where strength bloomed like sunflowers. Felicia's heart raced, but not with fear. Tonight she was no longer invisible. The centerpiece, in absence, stole breaths. It depicted Benjamin Carter, his silver hair catching an unseen light, gazing at a blank canvas as if seeing its potential. The painting, sold for $75,000 before the night began, was Felicia's tribute to the man who'd seen her when she couldn't see herself. She moved through the crowd, her steps steady, her smile warm but unguarded. Gallery goers whispered praise, their voices a hum of awe. "Her work feels alive," one critic murmured, scribbling notes. A collector in a sharp suit approached, asking to commission a piece for his Chicago penthouse. Felicia nodded, her voice calm but firm, promising to consider it. She wasn't here to please, she was here to share. As the evening peaked, the gallery director, a wiry woman named Elise, ushered Felicia to a small stage. The crowd hushed, their eyes fixed on her. Public speaking had once terrified her, each word a battle against the taunts of her childhood. Too dark, too quiet, but now holding a microphone, she felt the weight of her journey settle into strength. "I used to think I wasn't enough," she began, her voice clear, resonating through the room. "I thought my skin, my art, my story were too much for the world to hold. But someone saw me when I was invisible. Benjamin Carter gave me more than a scholarship. He permitted me to shine." Her words trembled with gratitude, and the crowd leaned in, captivated. She spoke of Benjamin, his belief in her talent, and his challenge to paint her truth. "He's gone now," she said, her eyes glistening, "but he lives in every stroke of my brush, in every canvas that dares to speak." The audience applauded, the sound swelling like a tide. Felicia's gaze found Mr. Amos, the market vendor from Atlanta, standing at the back. He'd made the trip, his weathered cap tilted proudly, his smile a quiet anchor. She nodded to him, her heart full, knowing her journey began with a moment of despair, giving away unyielding light, which led her to the stage. The exhibition wasn't just a triumph, it was a reclamation. Felicia had spent her year in Paris painting with abandon, her work catching the eye of curators across Europe. Light in Absence, her series born from grief, had landed her this show, but it was her presence, unapologetic, radiant, that held the room. A young black girl approached, clutching a sketchbook, her eyes wide with awe. "I want to paint like you," she whispered. Felicia knelt, her dress pulling around her. Paint like you, she said, tapping the girl's sketchbook. Your story is enough. The moment felt like a vow, a promise to lift others as Benjamin had lifted her. Later, as the crowd thinned, Felicia stepped onto the gallery's balcony, the New York skyline glittering like a canvas of stars. She thought of Hannah Whitmore, whose deception had nearly broken her. Word had reached Felicia that Hannah now worked in graphic design, her career steady but unremarkable. Felicia felt no bitterness. Hannah's lie had been a house of cards, crumbling under the weight of truth. Felicia's success, built on authenticity, was a light that endured. She learned that diminishing others dimmed one's shine, and she wanted no part of that shadow. Back inside, Mr. Amos joined her, his hands clasped behind him. "You found your light, child," he said, his voice warm with pride. Felicia smiled, her fingers brushing the sketchbook Benjamin had given her, now tucked in her bag. "I almost didn't," she admitted, "but giving away that painting led me to him, to this." Mr. Amos chuckled, his eyes crinkling. "Sometimes the wrong choice is the right door." Felicia's thoughts turned to Clark Atlanta, where the art department had changed since her departure. After Hannah's disqualification, a new scholarship in Felicia's name supported underrepresented artists, crediting their ideas and celebrating their voices. She'd heard of a new professor, a black woman who encouraged quiet students to speak through their art, much like Dr. Ellis had. The university's halls, once a battleground for Felicia's confidence, now felt like a place where others like her could bloom. As the night wound down, Elise handed Felicia a stack of business cards from collectors and curators, each one a new door waiting to be opened. Felicia took them, her heart steady. She wasn't just an artist now. She was a bridge, her success a path for others. She thought of the young girl with the sketchbook, of the countless others whose talents hid behind doubt. "I want to help them find their light," she whispered to herself, the city's pulse echoing her resolve. Standing alone on the balcony, Felicia looked out at the skyline, her reflection faint in the glass. The girl who'd once hidden her skin, her hair, her heart was gone. In her place stood a woman whose art had become a beacon, proof that truth, when given a chance, could illuminate the world. Her exhibition was more than a debut. It was a declaration. Felicia Brooks was here, and her light would not be dimmed. Felicia's journey reminds us that our light, however hidden, can shine when we dare to claim it. What moved you most about her story? Was it her courage, her art, or the unexpected doors that opened her path? Drop a comment below, share your thoughts, and tell us where you're listening from. Your voice matters, and we'd love to hear how Felicia's triumph resonates with you. Thank you for joining us on this journey of resilience and truth. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the power of authenticity, and hit that like button to spread the light. Until next time, keep chasing your unyielding light. We can't wait to see you again.